There is a young man in his early 20s. I believe he's literally 20 years old, on social media, made a bunch of posts that we could describe as, well, racist. And these posts included stuff like, I would never date anyone outside of my ethnicity. He declared himself a devout, like an open racist. He talked about how he doesn't like Indians, and I believe the exact words were normalize Indian hate. And he said all sorts of absolutely disgusting, like repulsive stuff, right? Now, when this came to light that this person with not a lot, well, actually zero government experience, was going around choosing which public servants, civil servants of 30, 40 years of experience should stay and get fired, asking them to validate themselves, and they're supposed to analyze it. When we find out that that person, with no experience in the first place, also advocating for eugenics on Twitter at the age of 20, there was a question that ringed out, which was, why is this person deciding who should be in charge of people's IRS accounts? Why is this person in charge, not IRS accounts, but Social Security accounts, or the IRS, or say any government agency? Why is this person choosing this? Oh, he was 25? Sorry. Sins forgiven. Sins forgiven. He can like eugenics now. Either way, this came out, and so what happened was he got fired. He said, hey, I'm sorry, eugenics is a bridge too far when trying to analyze government employees. But then there was like a little bit of backlash, like, oh, should we really ban him just because of some things he said on social media? And it was on X, because they were like, come on. And of course there were the people who were angry because they liked that he was racist. Because like some of the stuff that he was saying was stuff like, hey, don't worry, we're gonna replace all of these Indian immigrants with AI. And so all these tech jobs that are currently being done by Indians will no longer be done by them, they'll be done by AI, and then we won't need them here anymore. This is the type of commentary he was like throwing out there. And this guy is supposed to be reviewing the performance reports of civil servants of 40 years experience that does not just grow on trees. And he's going to decide that this guy comes back because of some backlash on Twitter about canceling the youth, quote unquote. He puts out this Twitter poll. And of course, the Twitter poll says, yes, bring him back. Bring him back. What, he's just a little bit of a eugenicist, just a little bit of racist. Mind you, the main argument we're hearing, right, from, for example, the vice president of the United States as why the eugenicist should be choosing who gets hired and fired, is like, come on, he was a kid. Like, doesn't everyone make mistakes? Let me read you JD Vance's viewpoint on this, because they did decide to bring him back after this Twitter poll, because everything must be decided by bottable Twitter polls. Here's my view. I obviously disagree with some of Elez's posts. That's the person in question. But I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. We shouldn't reward journalists who try to destroy people. Ever. So I say bring him back. If he's a bad dude or a terrible member of the team, fire him for that. So mind you, he posted this at 11 something a.m., 2 hours after this was posted, meaning that he was trying to influence the poll. The vice president of the United States was trying to influence the poll in order to make it so that the person who's a eugenicist, who is talking about replacing all the Indians with AI, normalize Indian hate. Mind you, JD Vance is married to an Indian woman. All these like disgusting posts, he was trying to encourage them to bring him back. And that was his viewpoint, to try to bring this guy back on the platform. Now, this isn't where it ends. This actually has a few layers to it. One second, we've got a few more layers here. We got to peel back. Here's Ro Khanna, one of my, I'll be open on my bias here, one of my favorite congressmen in the House. I think he's one of the better House members. I think he's diligent. And I think that he, is generally on the side of working families. He responds to JD Vance saying, are you going to tell him, this is referencing the person in question, the Elez, to apologize for saying normalize Indian hate before this rehire? Just asking for the sake of both of our kids. The reason why he's saying it is Ro Khanna is an Indian man, and JD Vance is married to an Indian woman, and therefore his kids with her are at least half Indian. And JD Vance responded to this saying, for the sake of both of our kids, racist trolls on the internet, while offensive, don't threaten my kids. You know what does? A culture that denies grace to people who make mistakes. A culture that encourages congressmen to act like whiny children. I cannot overstate how much I loathe this emotional, like you wrote a fucking book down here, this emotional blackmail pretending to be concerned. My kids, God willing, will be risk takers. They won't think constantly about whether a flippant comment or a eugenicist viewpoint will follow them around for the rest of their lives. They will tell stupid jokes. They will develop views that they will later think are wrong or even gross. I made mistakes as a kid, and thank God I grew up in a culture that encouraged me to grow and learn and feel remorse, and when I screwed up and offer grace when others did. I don't worry about my kids making mistakes or developing views they later regret. I don't even worry much about trolls on the internet. You know what I do worry about, Ro? Like, Ro, the first name basis. That they'll grow up to be a U.S. congressman who engages in emotional blackmail over a kid's social media posts. You disgust me. Wow. That's very brave for JD Vance to stick up to Ro Khanna to say, hey, how dare you go after this kid for saying normalize hatred towards my children? How dare you say that I should ask for an apology for saying that they should normalize hatred towards my wife? Like, okay, you know, you can pivot it one way, pivot it the other way about, you know, rebuilding, you know, being reborn or kumbaya, you know, let everybody like make mistakes and we'll all like hold hands around the tree and, you know, like fucking hit the drum and, you know, smoke a few doobies and get along, right? Here's the problem though. These are not all posts from when he was like 12. These are not all posts from when he was 20, just like a few years ago. These aren't even posts from necessarily, even though some of them are, from like a year ago. Some of these posts are just from a few weeks ago. This post right here, repeal the Civil Rights Act, is from 6 weeks ago. No, literally 6 or 7 weeks ago. December 26th. Repeal the Civil Rights Act. This isn't the only one, by the way. A lot of these posts that we're seeing, some of it's more disgusting stuff, is from like a few weeks ago. So you're telling me that in the last 2 weeks, this guy has changed from being somebody who believes that the protections put in place for Black Americans and other minorities during the civil rights movement in order to protect them from the horrors of Jim Crow and otherwise, that this person who is supposed to go to government agencies that have the responsibility of instituting the Civil Rights Act, this guy who doesn't even believe it should exist should be the person choosing who enforces it. This 25-year-old, this person who's calling for it to be repealed. And this is just one of the recent ones. There's other ones as well. Do I actually have any more? I don't need to bring any more. They're all the same. So, like, how much of a transformation did this kid make? If you wanted to pursue a eugenicist agenda, what's one of the first things you would want to do? Probably repeal something like the Civil Rights Act. And here we are. Zoop, he's back in the position. It's already done. He's already been taken and re-given power. This 20-something eugenicist who wants to repeal the Civil Rights Act is now choosing the civil servants that enforce the Civil Rights Act. Here is the Trump-Elon co-presidency in its full glory. Let's go, Brandon. Why is eggs so dang expensive? The cost of eggs is a complex interplay between inflation and other factors, like bird flu, of which the president has little control.